Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Bi-Weekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
And then make an announcement. Welcome to, there it is. Welcome to the Exeter Conservation Commission December 11th meeting. We can start out with introductions from my right.
Good evening, Nick Campion.
Kyle Welch.
Andrew Koff.
Connor Madison.
Trevor Matera.
Keith Whitehouse.
And we don't have anybody on Zoom or any members on Zoom, right?
Correct.
Perfect. I guess we can just keep running through. Can we do public comment? Oh,
And Kristen Murphy,
Kristen Murphy,
Conservation and
thank you.
Sustainability Planner. And you should activate Kyle as an alternate.
Kyle, would you do the honors of
I will. Yeah, Wonder
I mean,
Twins.
as a-
to be a voting member tonight?
Yep.
2 more. Yeah, that's enough. Perfect. Is anybody here for public comments for items that are not on the agenda? Seeing none, we can go on. I missed it in the beginning. Did you say Devin wasn't?
Devin is not here.
Here? So did
I'm
you
not
just wanna-
sure. I mean, I guess I can just say, or actually maybe, Keith, you have a survey out. Pearpoint Park Advisory Committee has a public input survey. Do you have any summary? Can you like summarize that? Or
The
what?
floor is.
I'm not well versed in the results of that. However, they've done a lot of different avenues. Did some interviews on the street. There's a QR code that you can take a picture with your phone and input, and it's on the town website. So input for Pearpoint Park. And I'm not sure exactly what Devin was going to ask, but he may be here shortly. Weather may have held him up.
So you're taking public input on
Public input for
ideas
Pearpoint Park for ideas, so that it can all kind of be distilled down and represented to the public in the coming months.
And that's the park we acquired down here on Water Street.
Yes.
I think
Always
last
visible.
year at this time, our last December meeting, there was
We
when
had the
this all took
emergency
place
meeting.
because it was the end of the last year, if I
That's
remember
right.
right.
I think you're right.
That-
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the addition of taking down the white fence. I don't know
Yes,
if you
putting
were
up
part
the
of that.
fence so people could see in to what they had, the gift they had been given was excellent. And now taking input to see what we should do, what the appetite would be for spending, et cetera, and whether or not we can do it publicly or privately. So a lot of options there to be examined.
There are a number of restrictions, right? There's limited space. Obviously, it's a small site, and there's setbacks from the buildings.
Yes, so the building to the right
I did not.
has a 6-foot right-of-way, and the other one has about a 2.5, 30-inch right-of-way, I believe, from the chocolatier. So those, that'll be part of the park, but it'll be
A design constraint kind of
correct.
for structures or.
Yeah. So there's a lot to be determined there.
Is there thought of like a gazebo or other like covered space, or is it all just?
So it's open, so the charge of the committee is to design the park. And the public certainly would want to take all the input we can get and get what people want. That's the idea. So definitely, if you think a gazebo is a good idea, please suggest it. I think having some kind of cover down there may be a good idea.
Have we had any input from the Chocolatier or Cornicello?
Other than they want to have, access to their right-of-ways, no, not that I know of. They've been very cooperative and are looking forward to doing something there. So it's all been very positive.
Good.
So if we want to come back, if Devin does show up, we can just come back to that. That is Perfect. So then next on the agenda is the review of the draft conservation easement for the Ryder property. Tax map 11303 and 11305. Is Caitlin here?
That's me.
Caitlin.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Caitlin Deo. I'm a conservation project manager with Southeast Land Trust. You're probably familiar with Jeremy Luigi. He was running this project before I joined CELT and he left, so I've been handling this for the past 6 months.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I haven't been fully involved in the Ryder property.
So I can give kind of an update of where it's been to date if you want. Does that make sense?
I think so. I just lost track of it, to be completely honest with you.
So this is the Tri-Town Conservation Project. It's off of Powder Mill Road. It might be familiar because we were in discussions with the property owner many years ago. But this is a new project, a new, kind of a new approach. And so in September of '23, so a little bit ago, you held a joint meeting with the select board to talk about acquisition. You voted to authorize a contribution of $100,000 toward this project. And the select board did at that time also vote in support of the grant applications and to accept the property with CELT holding it. But we do still have some additional steps that we need to go through. One of those steps is reviewing, because the town is not the conservation easement holder, we will hold executory interest. So because we have some land interests involved, we kind of still follow a lot of the similar steps that we would if we were the easement holders. So this is a draft easement. She can talk through the components of it, but we'll review the draft, provide some comments. Once the language is a little solidified, we'll send it off to legal counsel. And once legal counsel blesses it, it would go to the Exeter Select Board for execution. So, great.
I'm glad to hear legal counsel will also be, because I was looking
Always.
through it and I was like, oh, I don't know what.
Yeah, some dense reading.
Yeah.
And it's a complicated and interesting property. If you weren't on the sidewalks, I know
I was.
Keith was, yeah.
Kristen
Yeah.
was, yeah.
It's a cool site. There's there's a more of an active horse farm area, but that's actually in the exclusion area. Like, it's actually not all of the property, but most of the property is included in this easement, right?
Yeah,
And there's this former gravel mining area that's been reclaimed.
in the process.
In
of-
process of
I've seen
being
the loam being
reclaimed.
dumped myself. It's happening. Yeah.
And then a lot of it is just forest, but then even that is the history of brick. They were taking clay out of it. It was like the old Eno
Yeah.
clay factory, clay brick area. And a lot of those bricks, around town, they were like a somewhat famous brick company for a while back there. So there's some relic things on the land, but it's an important property that backs up to a tributary of the Exeter River. I forget the name of the river offhand, but
Great
Yeah.
Brook.
Great, Brooke.
Yeah, thank
Great
you,
Brook.
Great Brook. Yeah.
And so it does in terms of water. I think we did get one grant.
Yeah,
related.
500,000 from the Drinking Water Groundwater Trust Fund.
Right.
Yeah.
And some land transaction funds for land transaction costs,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. So, we have, we have 3 towns contributing to it. And then we have the Drinking Water Groundwater Trust Fund. And then there's one other that I'm forgetting. I think it's Great Bay Resource Protection Partnership. That's the other one. Yep.
And so we're at the draft easement, but where's the project? Is there still it's not finalized?
No, I'm happy to kind of walk you through where we're at right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So at this point, we have a final draft survey. It hasn't been recorded, but we have a final draft survey in hand. We have a phase 1 environmental assessment report completed. There's no environmental concerns that were found on the property. Good news. And then, so right now we have a draft easement in hand. So what that means is CELT and the landowner, we've come to an agreement. We're both happy with this document. Obviously, we have 3 partner towns, and then the Drinking Water Groundwater Trust Fund also holds a legal interest in this deed too. So we have it with our 4 partners right now to take a look and review it. I'm happy to answer any questions tonight, if any come out of tonight. Happy to address those. What we're hoping at this point is that if there's any requests for changes, any concerns about the document, we can address those by the end of this month. And then by early January, we'd like to have a more finalized version of it. So any red lines that come out of the towns, we can recirculate it around again, have that kind of in a more solid form so that it can go to Exeter and the other towns' legal counsel as well for that review.
And I guess I will just add, so conservation easements are in perpetuity, you all know that, but for the public or whatever, like that's forever. And I did point out, there are some things in here that aren't necessarily that are not in compliance with our zoning. For example, commercial uses are not permitted in that district, but because the property owner, current or future, has the potential to get a variance, we're okay with the language including some of that, as long as the property owner is aware that he or she would need a variance in order to do commercial activities there. So.
Because there's a section saying you can do certain commercial activities, but that doesn't mean they're actually able to right now.
Right. Just because the easement says that they would be allowed doesn't mean that they can violate state, local, or federal laws or zoning or anything like that.
Laws.
Yeah, those obviously would still be upheld. So it just gives flexibility for future, if they were to get a variance, if the zoning were to change in the area, and it just gives flexibility for the future. So, for example, there's a couple rights in there that there's a right for commercial outdoor education or commercial outdoor recreation. We don't know that this landowner will necessarily take advantage of that. Obviously, it's not zoned commercially, so he'd have to get a variance anyways. As I understand it, I'm not zoning expert. But, in the future, if one of the towns, say, were to own the property perhaps, or the town were to partner with a landowner who owns it and wanted to run like a trail race or a tree walk or something like that, and you had even something like a nominal fee, $5 to attend, in CELT's view, that's considered commercial. So money exchanging hands equals commercial. So really, we build that in there so that there's flexibility for the future so that it doesn't come down to the easement saying, sorry, that's not included, so you can't do that. So we want to make sure that there's flexibility for the future with those. Yeah.
Any other comments on it?
It seemed a little gray as to what the public access was or was not. Can you shed a little light on that?
Sure, yeah. So there's no affirmative right of public access for this property. The right to post it or allow public access, that would remain with the landowner of the property. At this time, I don't believe has it posted. I know he has welcomed hunters onto the property, but that would remain with that landowner. This property is mainly green infrastructure, is how I would describe it, so there's not necessarily going to be trails open to the public, but it's really important from a drinking water standpoint. There's a partial wellhead protection area on the property, a high transmissivity aquifer, and then there's significant frontage on that Great Brook tributary into the Exeter River.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So it's pretty silent on the access. Is there any?
Well, he's got a bunch of no trespassing signs posted all over it right now.
Does he have it on the property?
Yeah, well, last time I went by, he did, yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Like all along the
those
road.
remain.
Okay, yeah. So that would remain with the property owner, so they could have those up if he wished, or future landowners wished to.
Yeah, that was one of the challenging things, but we did kind of come around that this is not, although they maintain these trails, it's not necessarily the point of this is public access.
Right.
Right.
Could you also explain the reserved rights area as well?
Sure. Yep. So for those that were on the walk, when you did the site walk, there's that gravel pit while you were there. It's being restored to a hay field, but there's one driveway that goes out to that area. So that driveway area, we have, it's noted on the survey as a reserved rights area. That's the area where he would be allowed to park vehicles. They could be outside of farm vehicles, which are allowed as part of using the property for agricultural uses, but so he can park vehicles there and store them there. That's what I would describe as a temporary reserved right. A lot of this is all in perpetuity, but that reserved right is one where it remains with that specific person, his wife, or this is a complex project where he's not technically the owner, though he does live there. At this time, the owner is a gentleman who lives out in Switzerland, I believe. So those three people would have that right, but when they cease to own that property, it would be extinguished. So someone 10 years, 20 years from now who owns a property would not have the right to store vehicles there anymore, but that was something that we had come to an agreement with him early on in the process when Jeremy was handling it. So that's something that was baked into our purchase and sales agreement.
And is there any possibility of that right being transferred to a future owner, or is that, again, it just ends with those three people?
It ends with those three. Yep, it's very clear. Our legal counsel looked at it as well, so they understood what that intent was. The intent is just Chris Ryder, his wife Jill, or Bernard Mugler, and if they don't own the property, then that right extinguishes. It doesn't transfer to future property owners.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other, I know we're panning through it, but any other outstanding questions?
Kristen, do you have comments?
Yeah, so I did review it. I was comfortable outside of the commercial component of it, which, we did discuss, and I spoke with Doug Eastman about. I felt a little better once I heard that, this doesn't authorize him to conduct, them to conduct activities that are not in compliance with our zoning ordinance. I did have a question about the solar, the allowance for,
renewable energy.
yeah. And I was just confused because I can't find it oh, here it is. So it's sized only to service the energy needs of the property. But there is the potential to sell excess power. So is there I guess, size-wise, is there some sort of boundary on what that size could be? I don't think it's likely, but, you could make a case that property, who knows what uses might occur in the future within the excluded area. And so is there some constraints at all on size, or what was the thought there?
Sure, yeah. So when you speak about size, I imagine you're talking about the impervious surface of a solar panel or renewable energy, sure. So we do have limitations baked into the easement on how much impervious surface could be added to the easement area. It's limited to 2% of the property. I believe it's 1.45, if I'm remembering, acres. So he would only be able to add impervious surfaces up to 2% of the easement area. So that would include something like a barn, if he chose to pave his driveway, if he was adding in solar panels, a shed, anything like that that's allowed by the easement, it would still be limited to only that much more impervious surface.
That's right, I do remember. Okay, thank you.
Yep,
I think it's over 3 acres.
thank you. Whatever 2% is.
Three,
Don't
yeah.
ask me
3.12.
312, yeah.
Trevor?
And then the other one was that reserved rights, but talking through it, I felt comfortable with it.
I have a question. Would a concert be considered a commercial outdoor recreational activity?
Are they paying for the concert? If they're paying for the concert, it would be considered a commercial activity.
Okay.
He does have agritourism rights too in here, so you start to look at kind of what that definition looks like. So I'm not as familiar with the what those definitions are, state definitions of that. But, concert-wise, it could kind of veer into agritourism, I think. But there's all that language around agritourism, what's allowed, and that it can't be detrimental to the easement purposes, excuse me.
And then the other question that I had that I hadn't talked to you about was, so forestry requires SELT to approve a forest management plan.
It requires a forest management plan
Yep.
to be done by a licensed forester. If it's anyone other than a licensed forester, SELT would need to approve that qualified person.
Okay.
Yeah, so we don't have to approve the forest management plan, but we do have the right to enforce the easement based on what they do on the ground.
Okay.
And the forest management plan needs to be informed by the easement.
Right. But so if you use that same process and apply it to agriculture, it's not quite the same. It says that, that agriculture and agritourism activities occurring on the property shall be performed in accordance with the agricultural plan, a copy of which should be provided to the grantee. So there's no communication or review process in terms of, like SELT doesn't have the authority to say, you've identified this area for, I don't know, this use, and that we don't feel that's in compliance with the, you know what I mean? Like, how does SELT, so you get the plan, what if you disagree with some of the components of that plan? There's no right really baked in there for you to,
Yeah, it would be
You pre-approve, review some sort of.
right, it says.
Review and then approve.
which page are we on? Just so I can see the language.
Page 7.
Thank you.
It says, the actual activities will determine compliance therewith. So an activity would have to occur and SELT determine it be out of compliance. There's no sort of review process in the plan stage.
So SELT would certainly look at the plan. We
Okay.
would get it and look at it, and certainly if our stewardship team saw something of concern in that, we would speak to the landowner. Our stewardship, we have a whole team that handles our stewardship, and they're very good about keeping open communications with landowners, what their intent is with their property in the coming year. So each monitoring visit, which we do yearly as part of our accreditation process requirements, they're talking and having constant communications with those landowners. So certainly if they were to see something in that plan and it would be of concern, they would note that to them. But again, if you see in the bottom of that paragraph, it's saying, even if they have something in that plan and we're saying that's probably unlikely to be an okay activity, if they were to still do that activity, and then we would be able to enforce it on the ground. So if they built a skyscraper, even though we said you can't build that skyscraper, don't do that, and they did
Right.
it, we would still be enforcing the easement.
Okay.
So it's my understanding that the term agritourism is a little bit vague at this point in the statutes.
I wish I could speak to that a little bit more. I know that there's a lot of talk around that right now. But I know we have other easements that do have agritourism rights in it. So SELT does work with other farmers and landowners that have that right. But I'm not as well versed on the statute to be able to comment too much on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Kristen, anything else on your end?
No. And I mean, I will say I'm comfortable with this. I'm mostly thankful that, just as you mentioned, that our legal counsel will have a look. But I think, as long as we're thinking about this in a long-term component, some of these rights extinguish. At the end of the day, we're protecting that groundwater, we're protecting the surface water, and the agricultural soils. So I think this is a great project, and I'm supportive of it. I really didn't have anything. I just had those, because they're new to us, I had those questions. But I don't really have any concerns, per se.
I had one other comment.
Sure.
I'm sort of putting on my work DES hat. because I work for doing groundwater, drinking water
Oh,
stuff.
well, great, then you're
So,
familiar.
there's the whole section C, I'm looking at page 12. And it's great that you have built in here a process for someone to develop groundwater withdrawal wells
Yes.
on the property for public water supply.
Public water supply, yes.
Right,
very clear.
non-commercial use, so I'm very
Yeah.
supportive of that. The town has been looking for water supply wells and has now tested one and drilled one, but, so there's a whole process going on, but we were looking a few years ago at properties and realized some deed restrictions were limiting town's ability to put in wells in conserved land, and it can be a very sort of beneficial shared use of property to have conservation land and water supply area. So anyways, I'm in favor of it. The grantor in this section is, there's multiple grantors, is that right? You have CELT, no,
No, so the grantor is the landowner. So in this case, it's Bernard Mugler. He is defined as the grantor.
okay.
Yep, and then CELT is the grantee. And then we've got 3 executory interest holders, Exeter, Kensington, East Kingston. And then we have a third-party right of enforcement held by the state of New Hampshire through their Department of Environmental Services.
Okay,
Yep.
so the grantee is CELT in this case,
Yeah, the easement holder.
the easement holder. So how does,
How would that become a
I guess,
public water
how
supply?
how does DES, has DES reviewed this language that you have in this section?
Yeah, so this actually is their language.
It's their
can't
language?
Take credit for this. This is specifically their language. It's something that they require that is in any deed that they're funding through the Drinking Water Groundwater Trust Fund. So
Okay.
that's their language cut and copied into there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they put some of this language, I could give them, I guess I would say, I would go back to them and say, Part D particularly, it says, in the event that after 2 years from the date of installation of the test wells, the grantor has not submitted a construction proposal per ENVDW 40402. I get a little concerned when you put administrative rules in a deed because they change and it's hard to go back and find them. So, 20 years from now, ENVDW 40402 is going to be different
Yeah.
than it is right now. And actually, we're adopting, those rules are being readopted right now. And so it may be different in a year than it is right now, and that rule reference. So I don't know. That would just be a comment that I think those are hard to track over time. You could go back to when it's issued or put a footnote in to what that actually means, but it's sort of a weird way to put it in a deed. I think in 2 years isn't actually very much to get from test well drilling to construction of a property, of the like drinking water infrastructure, like the pipeline, which I think is what that 40402 is. I'm not exactly sure, but like Exeter drilled those wells 2 years ago and they're just testing them now, and they're not gonna get approved and connected probably for another 2 years. So it's like a bigger, longer term. It can take a decade, so.
Yeah.
And it says something in here about you can ask for extensions, and maybe that's all fine. So I don't know, I just read this and it seemed not quite how it seemed a little weird, the language, but.
I'm happy to pass those comments along.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Okay.
is funny because they do, I have gotten comments from them in the past where they do want to make sure there's flexibility in which agency is putting out the best practices. They do say or in the future, whoever has been identified by the state of New Hampshire. So it's funny that they have picked on that and made sure that there's flexibility there, but in their language that it's very clear on those. So I'm happy to make that comment and see if if we can flex that a little bit.
Yeah, that would be my recommendation, I guess, to keep
Yeah.
it general.
Sure.
Not to go down the rabbit hole too far, but I completely agree with you. I think having the rule number listed in especially in deed language is really messy because just like you mentioned, those change, the language changes. They'll go through, I mean, that's bad DES.
It is. Yeah. I I don't know where this language came from, but
Should make an email, Drew. You should.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
You
can-
go to work tomorrow.
There is,
Make
it
a
does,
call.
that is referenced again in there. I see it
Yeah.
on section A.
Yeah, they've got
The
it.
following section A. But I don't know, there may not be another easy way to do that.
I'll certainly mention it to them. Yeah.
Okay.
And see what they say back. I'm happy to share what they share on that.
Final call. See nods, nose.
Have you been through the other towns yet, or are we the first town?
You are the third town.
We're the third town?
In 3 days, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yep, so I was with East Kingston on Monday night, and then I was at Kensington last night. Now you guys are the.
Well, it's good we
final.
moved our
moved
meeting.
just for you.
Yeah.
I know, I don't know how it all landed so nicely. I thought I was gonna not get to all of them, so, yeah, no.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
Was there anything you thought worth mentioning here that you learned there at those other two meetings?
That's a great question. We had questions from Kensington last night about that reserve rights area as well, so we talked about that a little bit. One of the members, she wasn't a fan of that driveway, I suppose. So that was kind of her comments. And then, wow, it's been a long couple of days. East Kingston, it went very smoothly. They asked a lot of similar questions. There's nothing that really stuck out in that one. It was pretty easy. They had read it. They were familiar with it at that point. So nothing that you guys haven't already asked.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do I dare make a motion? That we reviewed the conservation easement and subject to legal counsel review, authorize the chair to send a memo to the select board in support of accepting the acquisition.
Second.
Oh, can you read the whole thing?
You want me to keep going?
Yes.
I was gonna say.
Sorry.
Yep, accepting the acquisition of real property interest through the executory interest of tax map 113.3 and tax map 113.5 in the name of the town and by and through the Conservation Commission pursuant to RSA 36A4 as presented as amended.
As presented, is that,
As presented as amended, yes.
that's a choice.
Oh, let's go as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Am I writing a letter?
We'll have,
We'll write a letter together. Perfect.
perfect.
Great. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. Thank you.
Oh, moving on. We have the letter of support for grants associated with the pickpocket dam removal. Is it beneficial to go through? I was not there last night. I don't know if anybody was at the meeting last night.
Yeah.
Some of
If
us
you have
Drew
a,
was, Kristen was.
Keith was.
Keith, that's right. Yeah, you gave me a chair.
No.
Yeah, it was a well-attended event. It was in that library room. It was pretty much full, standing room. I thought it was a good meeting.
Does anyone know if it was recorded?
It was not
It
recorded.
didn't seem, yeah, okay.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, that was,
Slides might get posted, possibly.
they,
We are we are anticipating getting a clean copy of the slides
Okay.
and sharing those on the town's website.
But yeah, I think it was a very good presentation.
Yeah, it was. Also too.
They explained next steps, permitting steps, and again, that is all laid out in the slides. 3 grant opportunities that they're currently going after. One specifically for this more of an interim period that's focused on permitting and design specifically, as well as from Great Bay 2030 and 2 NOAA grants for full implementation, I believe. And I don't believe there's any match associated with either of those, but hopefully I'm not wrong there. I know one of them at least doesn't have any match associated with it. So, yeah, it would be 100% implementation costs covered.
And they're coming up pretty quickly.
Did they know
Those
the
grant
deadlines?
deadlines are like, one is next week, and then one's January,
January,
and then one's
yeah.
later.
Soon.
Later 2025. So, I guess they're working pretty hard. Should be working pretty hard to get all that done.
Yeah, and I know you have voted in the past in support of this project, but I went back to review the motions and they were specific to particular grants. So in your packet tonight, I drafted a generalized motion if you're supportive of doing that, so that we can more quickly have the chair send a letter of support to each of those grant opportunities.
Yeah, and I'll say, I mean, there's no reason we wouldn't be supportive, because it's on the, not the ballot, it's gonna be in the deliberative session, and then we will be voting on it in March for the full cost to remove the dam, which is what, $2 million
A
around?
little over. Yeah.
And so, anything we get in grants will reduce that overall cost. Do we don't have a sense of if we'll know before March if we've received any of these? I guess maybe one of
We
them
will, yeah. Great Bay 2030, we should know by mid-January.
mid-January, so that'll help.
But the other ones, we won't. I think the coastal zone grant, which I forgot to mention, I think that's later in the late spring, early summer. And then NOAA's usually August, September, that kind of time frame. So yeah, much later in the year.
And that's the same grant we applied for this past year and didn't get.
Correct.
But we're now further along and we have all these things going.
Right, and yeah, and for those that weren't there, they described that too, correct. One of the NOAA grants we're going for, we went for last year. However, at that time, there wasn't a decision made, the feasibility and alternatives report wasn't completed, so we were multiple steps behind. It was just sort of like, this is the direction we're going in. It was a larger grant and the time frame was coming up, so they took a shot at it. And they mentioned that they came in very, very, very close to actually being funded, even with all of those steps not completed. But they said, they weren't, you didn't get the money, try again. So this is round 2.
I will point out there was some questions, concerns seemingly from abutters. I guess abutters were invited to this meeting specifically. And there was concern about changes to flood zones and other potential impacts to properties adjacent. And I thought they did a good job at answering, responding to those questions while trying to keep the meeting and moving forward. So it was a good meeting.
Yeah, so I could keep talking about this because I know about this stuff, but yeah, the folks that are spearheading this VHB, so they were part of the Great Dam removal. Jake San Antonio himself, who's the one speaking for most of it, he's been doing this for 25 years, so he's been certainly not his first rodeo, and he's a local guy. So yeah, they, as far as projects go, there's not as many. There's not as many like really hard sticking points like when it comes to like actually environmentally or design-wise. There's like not this huge amount of like contaminated sediments in it. It's not like we're dealing with a large system. There's no fast current, like, it's, when it comes to the actual like design and environmental impacts and just scope of it, it's kind of a layup when you look at it like a project like that as far as dams go.
Procedurally, what happens if the town warrant article gets voted down?
That's a good question. Paul Vlasic, the town engineer, mentioned that. That was asked last night as well. And basically, he said, this warrant article will be crafted to authorize the funding. And so should an additional grant be secured, say a NOAA grant or others, that cover dam removal, the cost in full, there's no need to go back to town meeting. And so that would be a select board level decision. They would have the authority to approve acceptance of a grant because they don't have to secure a match. So should it fail and we get one of the other grants, then there would be a select board meeting, public hearing and decision to approve the project. Should we not get that grant, then we would probably need to seek extensions or something, because we are under pressure from the Dam Safety Bureau to bring the dam into compliance. So some action will have to take.
Would there be fines or?
There could be. Yeah, there was talk of potential fines with Great Dam that had gone on for many years, but because we continued to work with the state, there was some flexibility on their behalf to allow us to continue to move forward without being fined. But there could be. They have the authority to, I guess I should say.
Yeah, I think they mentioned that some action needed to take place by 2027. And this timeline they proposed, which was like, the best case scenario right now, is to do the design in 2025 into 2026, and then actually the construction phase would be 2027. So it's already sort of at its limit within the current time frame, because there's still a lot of work to be done before you can get in there and rip it out. So I guess a lot of this is kind of beyond the scope of what we need to do for a letter, but
I was all curious, so yeah, thanks.
And I think there'll be more. There was talk of there's going to be another public session.
That's what I was just looking up.
I forget when they said that was going to be, but probably ahead of the warrant article.
Yeah, I don't think a date was mentioned, right? So.
But it would be talked about in the deliberative session, assuming that it's on there, if there's a warrant article. So.
Yeah, they said conservatively in the summer, but realistically, probably before the warrant article, so something much sooner.
All good things. So then I guess I'll motion to authorize the chair to sign a letter in support of the town applications for upcoming grant programs for the purposes of securing funding for the removal of Pickpocket Dam and restoration of the Exeter River.
Second.
Thank you.
Before the vote, can I?
Yes, of course.
Would it be possible to include chair or designee?
He's trying to
So
get
that-
himself off
You
the
don't
hook.
like my shortcuts here, huh?
So that
Yes,
we could
yeah.
have you sign the letter tonight,
Yep.
given the time frame.
Do you want me to
Sorry.
re-motion?
You could
You can
rescind the
amend it.
motion.
I can amend it,
and-
yeah.
or
Can I amend it to say authorize the chair or designee to sign the letter in support of the town applications for upcoming grant programs for the purposes of securing funding?
I'll still second that.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. So we will sign that letter, and then that letter will go to,
Paul Vlasic, the
Just like the
town
project.
engineer.
Okay.
And be included in the grant application package.
More than happy to.
Great.
Allison Eberhardt was there. She says hi. She was asking about us. I said, we're meeting tomorrow night.
Feel free to come. Then that puts us on through committee reports. Property management is always number one. I don't know if there's any updates.
Not really. There is an item that we, under correspondence that is kind of property
I
management
didn't
related.
know where to put that. Yeah,
Yeah.
we can
but-
keep it under correspondence.
Yeah. Let's wait to talk about that.
Outreach items. Sorry that I haven't been here in the past month or so. The fall, did we do a Rains Barn, the sunrise fire?
We did.
How did that go? Sorry that.
It was kind of like today, rainy.
Was it?
Yeah, so it went good.
The fire warning was low then.
Yes, it was. We got a permit, we got a seasonal permit, so we're good through the end of the year from the fire department. That was very good. And we had 9 people come out, and we wound up doing it in a solo stove. We had coffee and hot chocolate, muffins, and it was good. I thought it was great. So we're going to move on to a solstice one coming up on the 21st. And Kristen, would you tell us about the lantern,
Yeah.
please?
So we had held a winter solstice event at Rains in the past, and we're hoping to bring that back again. What we had done, and it would require some partnerships with some of you, but what we had done in the past was we had two fire pits. So we had one by the parking lot, and people would come and gather there, and then light their lanterns and walk down to the barn. And then we had a second fire at the barn, and cocoa and, snacks in the barn. The basement has been cleaned out and was used for the last event, so I think it would make sense to have cocoa in there again. And so I was trying to figure out how we could get kids to make some lanterns, and I talked to the library about, on Fridays, they have crafts in the library. And they're willing to host a lantern making event. And so I found a pretty simple design, and it's just, parchment paper, a muffin cup or whatever, and then you drop a tea light in, so it's not obviously a real candle. And we can offer kits at Parks and Rec and at Public Works and here in the town office for kids to pick up if they want. With instructions on how to make the lantern, but there would be a supply cost in association with that. So it's not necessary to do, but I think it would be really fun to involve the library. So I brought an example. I'm not a crafty person, but I
sharp.
attempted to
Looks
make
sharp.
it. And then when you drop a tea light in there, it does light up and it looks kind of cool. The challenge is you can't really decorate it because you can't draw, I guess, on parchment paper, but maybe with crayons you could. I don't have crayons to test. but maybe
Stickers.
Stickers, yep, you could do stickers. So that is the idea, and I hope that you guys are supportive and would be willing to help pull it off.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great,
I love it.
great,
I'm in.
good.
So we already have the material for a fire near the barn, away from the barn, but up on the hill. And we have tables and chairs, etc. If people want to come in down below, could be cold, it could be warm, it's hard to tell. And so we're thinking 4:30, is that correct? Is that what you think?
Yeah,
Okay, so 4:30, so that would be after sunset. And go until when?
I think we did 4:30 to 6:30 last time,
Okay,
but, just until people are done.
yeah, that works. Okay, sounds good. Any, Nick, would you be interested in?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I'll be there.
good. Okay. Anyone else?
I'll be a tentative. Make sure it works out with the rest of the family first.
Yeah, no, I understand this. I do get that. Yeah, so I would invite all the public to attend, and especially kids. Bring your parents.
And I'll make just a quick comment. Keith is incredibly humble and modest and doesn't want to take the credit, but the sunrise event that he pulled off was phenomenal. And kudos to Keith for emceeing that event, and everybody who attended was generally very curious, and Keith did a great job cleaning up the basement of the barn, and it was fascinating to see, and there was a lot of really good questions and comments, and how do you think this worked, or what about that, and so kudos to Keith.
Thank you. Yeah, I had some help with that, and it's a really awesome place, and I think we can continue to build on getting it used. And as I discussed with Kristen, I think that the savior of the Rains Barn is going to be use. You know, like I said, if you don't do anything to your yard at your house for 2 years, see what happens. And similar there. You know, if we let it sit and don't do much there, it will continue to decline. I think people going there, getting interested, doing things there, it may not be traditional, every single thing conservation oriented, but just having functions there, getting people interested, getting people to care about it, getting people to volunteer their time, and perhaps even money to do things. There's a lot of potential there, a lot of potential to do a lot of different things. It's 50 acres. Many people, I don't think, realize that that we own that. The residents of Exeter own that, and it's a really awesome place. Not just the building itself, but the whole area. There's a lot to see there. There's a whole nother field that's behind there that's hidden. If you don't walk out that way, you can't see it from the road. Very nice place. I encourage people to go out and take a walk, take a look, and see what it's about.
Well said. Well said. And now, yeah, the barn it's in so much better shape, and if we get that internal staircase, it's close to being a lot more functional than it was. And that'll really, hopefully that can help spur activity. Yeah, because it's really cool. Be a shame to just have it be locked up all the time.
So do we need a decision on lanterns then?
Yeah, or just the authorization for, I don't know, maybe like $40 to cover lantern supplies and snacks. That I think should probably do it.
Does that need to come out of a specific fund?
Conservation Land Administration, which is like your general fund.
All right, I would move that we put aside up to $40 from the Conservation Land General. Sorry, I missed which one.
Administration.
Administration, for the use of this event.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. I also like the flyer that I've been staring at, and I noticed Trevor was staring at it as well.
Yeah, where'd we get that?
I made it.
That's great.
Well, I borrowed the image
Yeah.
and used the image.
It's nice.
to-
I like it.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I can make flyers a lot better than I can craft. I'm not a craft person.
That looks great.
Next up, we see the Kyle Hike Challenge. Has there been movement?
Well, Hike Exeter Challenge. But that's a little bit of a segue too, because Kristen's been helping a bunch with getting the website kind of to the point where we can go. I started I thought I was pretty close, but then I started getting worried that we're going to have people getting lost. And like 2 of them are pretty straightforward. the QB Road one is just an out and back, basically to Vernon Family Farm, and then the one that goes along the river from Gilman Park. But then the other four, I got a little worried that we're gonna have people wandering around lost in the woods. And so we've been updating the Henderson Swayze one. And Kristen's gonna bring this one up to make it a little more clear. But then I also wanted to, people to be able to use an app to follow it. And so, All Trails is a pretty popular app. It has a free option, which works fine. The pay option just lets you download maps, and it gives you a couple more features, but it doesn't prevent, you can still do the navigating with just the free app. So Kristen, do you want to go to, we specified that it's anybody, not just Exeter people, can participate in this. But if you want to go to maybe the second one, so that map there is what we had at first. Right there, but like, I go in there all the time, and I was thinking like, well, it's really clear to me, but I could just see it being a problem for other people. So I think maybe we want to get rid of that map and go down to the other one that we have down, all the way down at the bottom. So I kind of updated it, and I added in some landmarks, and I did a written description, which is up a little bit, and it references a lot of the landmarks that I added in there. And so that's kind of been the delay, is I kind of want to make it so that people don't get in trouble. And then what else I also found out for All Trails is if you make a route or a trail and then you submit it and put it on their server, I thought that then anybody that searched would be able to find it, but it turns out they have to review and approve it, and that can sometimes take months. So I guess that's the period we're in now, because if I search on All Trails I just called it Hike Exeter number 2, nothing comes up. But you can still access it via the link, and I did send you in your email the link. I'm not sure what's going to happen if you click on it not on a phone. But basically, you click on this link, and if you have the All Trails app, it'll come up. And it's literally got like a green route where the trail is, and then you're a little blue triangle, and you just keep the blue triangle on the green route, and you're gonna get back to your car. So yeah, and so that's in the All Trails app there. And so I think that'll be kind of fun maybe for people that maybe are screen oriented, to maybe get people out, and it's definitely gonna prevent people from having to get rescued, which was my concern and everything. And unfortunately, that means that it's kind of delayed the release. I also created a Facebook page, which we're going to use just for posting pictures and, trip reports, and not affiliated with the town in any way. And so far, it's just Kristen and I are the members. But if any of you guys wanted to be guinea pigs, and take this link with the All Trails app, and just see if it's as clear to you who has never done it as it is to me who does it all the time, then that would certainly, I think, be useful.
So I should
would-
update the Henderson Swayze one to replace it with or add the link.
Add the link and replace the map, the better satellite version of the map that's at the bottom now. I think we can just get rid of the other map, if
Okay.
that's possible.
Yep.
I guess it's not fully easy to describe it as blue to yellow to green or something like that.
There's just a
There's
lot
a
of
few turns.
other trails that.
Yeah.
You do well in the narrative.
Yeah, I think if you were reading that along as you went, then it would maybe be more clear. But I'm not sure if people are going to be smart enough to print that out ahead of time, or
Yeah.
But
Yeah, no, I mean, I wouldn't imagine people would
but I kind of feel like
read something like that nowadays. But
it would be kind of cool if beyond this, if we just maybe had a list of different hikes suggested that would highlight some of the trails that we could do one for Rains Farm, and send them down to the left, and do the loop down by the river, and I think that might encourage people who wouldn't ordinarily just wander off into the woods on their own to go check out some of these places. But, so the
Yeah, I
status right
guess
now.
we have the whole like trail map section, don't we, on a
Yep.
website somewhere? But it doesn't, it's like, here are all the conservation areas with trails. I mean, they're only the ones that have trail maps,
Right.
but it's
And-
not as hiking oriented. I like,
But people definitely get lost too. Like I've
Yeah.
run into people, like I met a guy near the top of the tunnel, coming up from the tunnel in there, and it was close to sunset, and he was trying to get to the trestle. And he was about to go the wrong way. And I was like, you know what? I'll walk with you. And we got him back to his car. And
And I'll show you how updated the trail maps are.
well, yeah, the Henderson Swayze one is
It's more
outdated.
unique.
It's not. Yeah.
But and that's part of the problem is there are more trails than are shown on the map, and so that gets really confusing if you're in there.
Yeah, it's hard to, you need to follow it on a phone where it'll locate you.
But yeah, so I guess ultimately my hope is that through this, people will kind of get used to checking out some different things, and if someone that finds that the All Trails app is useful to them, then there's other stuff that we haven't even created. There's a ton already existing that are out there that ripe for the plucking.
Yeah. That's cool.
You could, I don't know if it would make sense to post GPX files of each route. Some people are into that, and they can download them onto their phone and then follow them in their app of choice. I mean, that's sort of someone who knows what they're doing, like a biker
Right.
or a runner.
Well, I have GPX files of all of them, so
Yeah.
I think we could put that up there too.
Yeah. Yeah, you know.
Great.
I think it's a great, cool thing.
So yeah, unfortunately, this has been such a fantastic fall for hiking, and I kind of have dragged my feet enough to get us into the middle of winter, it seems. But anyways, I guess one other just interesting fact that I'll just throw out that has nothing to do with any of this, but we're now at the point where the sun is setting a little bit later every day. And so the earliest, yeah, you would think it would be the 21st.
Oh, yeah, but then the morning or
409.
something?
The morning
There's
doesn't
some
happen until
weird-
January 4th. That's the latest sunrise around then. But so by December 15th, we'll have gained a minute from the earliest sunset.
Huh.
So by the 21st, I think you've gained 3 minutes. So, yeah.
One step closer.
It's wild to watch, really. When you pay attention, it's.
But that could be a trivia question someday, and now you'll get it.
Yeah, it's weird that it's
Stays
not
at 409
symmetric
for a long time.
about the solstice. I want it to be
That's the earliest.
the same.
I
but
always thought it was.
It is.
I think, yeah.
I don't know why that is.
So I think we should promote this through the normal channels, like the bi-weekly report, get it
Yeah,
on
well,
our
let's get
Facebook page.
yeah, I gotta get this, like, the four that are people, like, the one that people are really gonna get lost on is the Oakland's one. The red loop in there.
So we need to do what you did with all trails for all of them?
I think so, but I can do that
Okay.
quickly.
I think all the other ones are fairly straightforward.
Yeah, well, the Jolly Ran one, I would love to kind of make it more than just an out and back and send it up through Riverwoods, but I was like, no one's ever gonna be able to follow this. But if they use the all trails, then I'll feel a little bit better about it.
Yeah, I do that loop all the time, and it's,
Yeah, you go up by the gazebo and then back down and so.
but is it, yeah, I don't know. It is not,
There's
that
some
is
pavement on
private
there.
land and there's some pavement.
Um,
You could also send them, do a little lollipop. You go out and around on that salt land and then come back to Jolly Rand. It'd be
Yeah,
just a
we could just
little,
do that, yeah.
little loop
Yep.
to go down to that pond.
So why don't we, what about what about reordering them and starting with Henderson Swayze? And then like once a month or once a week, release a new one?
Oh, okay.
What do you think about that?
So just release them one at a time, yeah, that might
Yeah.
be fun. I
Yeah,
like it.
so that we could do Henderson Swayze, and then we could pick another one that,
A little hype.
that Jolly Rand or something that we're comfortable that with the public navigating as it is, and then build in the more complicated ones. So that gets it out there, gets people starting to use it, but buys enough time to,
I love it.
okay. All right.
Is that the one do we want to start with? That one's one of the harder ones, I guess, just terrain wise. Or do we want to start with an easier one, or, it's not terrible, it's only 2 miles. I did it today. Fire danger is no. It is
Yeah.
wet out there.
That's
Okay?
Great
So
work.
start with Henderson Swayze.
Great work, Kyle.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You know, and I'll just add also that, like, one thing that's super amazing when I go out there every day, the lack of trash and litter on the trails is kind of astounding. Like, if you see something, you're like, because it's so rare. Like, the people that use these trails definitely take really good care of them.
I've noticed that as well.
Yeah.
Found a box of Newports empty. First trash I'd seen in 6 months. Amazing.
Yeah, if you do, it's usually something like maybe a wrapper that somebody
Yeah.
assume dropped accidentally.
Yeah.
But anyways, hopefully it stays that way.
Also give you credit that I walked QB Road for the
Oh.
first time last week because of Hike Exeter.
Nice.
So, yeah,
What'd you think?
I haven't done all of these, so I went out and did it. It was nice. It was nice. I went up to the rail trail and then continued on. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, there's a couple trails in there. If you take a left on the rail trail, then you can come back on Birch, I think, Lane or something like that, and then there's a trail that cuts back over to the QB Road.
Through the woods, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's where I found the Newport box.
It wasn't me. I swear. I
All
promise.
right, it's all right.
I felt the acquisition.
It's okay, I got you.
Yeah. That's
Excellent.
awesome. Thank you.
Got our
Yeah.
first customer.
That's awesome. I'm excited for it. I think people will be really
I hope
interested
so.
in it. Yeah.
Other committee reports. I don't know how much has been going on. River studies, sustainability. I saw an
So-
energy or something.
Yeah, I just have two things that I'll mention, well, three things that I'll mention. One, the Sustainability Advisory Committee, and I did include a flyer in your packet. They're hosting a styrofoam collection event, so if you're, it's heavy retail season, we want to keep that styrofoam out of our landfill. So we're still in the process of securing all the permissions, but we're hoping to have that at the town hall parking lot. And so Save Your Styrofoam Up will collect it there and then drive it to Guilford, who has a styrofoam densifier system, which is what the Sustainability Committee is putting on, or has requested to put on the warrant this year for funding one locally. So Save Your Styrofoam, that's January 4th from 9 to 11. You can bring it there for free. It's limited to Exeter residents, but it's a great way to get it out of the landfill. And the processing that Guilford does turns it into usable material. So if you've ever seen like that stiff foam insulation, that's one product from it. Flooring is another, and there's some others. But they sell that as a commodity. They get money for it. So they take styrofoam, process it into this thing that they then sell. They also have this huge savings because they're not spending as much in tipping fees for the landfill. So we're paying to dispose of it anyway. Might as well make some money while we do it. So that's January 4th, which is a Saturday, hopefully at Town Hall, but location to be determined at this point. And then the other one.
Kristen, is that
Yeah.
just Exeter residents or
It
anybody?
is,
Okay.
it is. There was a lot of interest from other people, but we need to secure a truck, which we still haven't done yet. We're hoping we can find someone willing to donate a truck or, anyway, we're limited in capacity of what we can haul to Guilford. So at this point, residents only. If we did have this system in Exeter, we would welcome all communities to deposit it. So I'm collecting the communities who are interested in the event this gets approved, so that we have other communities we can reach out to in the future. But unfortunately, we're kind of limited at this point, space-wise. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was the Energy Committee. As you know, I've mentioned it several times. They have their window dressers program. The Community Build, which is a volunteer-based assembly line, basically, will be held also at Town Hall from, thought I wrote it down, January 18th through the 23rd. You can sign up for volunteer shifts. If you go to the town's website and search window dressers, there's a link for how to sign up for a shift. The shifts are, there's 2 shifts a day. They're about 4 or 5 hours. A meal is provided. We're looking for people, donations of lunch or people to make lunches if you're interested. There's lots of ways that you can participate, but they make it really easy to assemble these frames. So that's the other one. And then the last one, the Tree Committee, as you know, is a subcommittee to to the Conservation Commission. We submitted just today our Tree City recertification for 2024 and our growth award. So this will be, I think, the 4th or 5th year in a row where we're not only doing the baseline activities required to hold your Tree City certification, we're doing over and above that effort. And so hopefully we'll receive a growth award again. So those were the 3 items from committee reports I wanted to highlight.
I signed up for the window dressers on the morning of the 19th, so
Yeah.
if there's still space, we can hang out and plasticize some frames.
Yeah. They have like these cool jigs already built into tables, so it's really just setting down pieces of wood and it fits into place and you just screw it in, or it's a really well-oiled machine at this point to build or assemble these.
The flyer looks like they're having fun, so.
Yeah. 20% of the orders that we have are free or reduced. So we're really, through this project, we're really making a difference in bringing low-cost inserts to people, hopefully saving them a bundle in their heating costs this year.
Good. And you're okay with the order overall,
Yeah.
total orders?
Yeah, our goal was 200 and we're right at that, so plus or minus a few.
Great.
Well, thank you. I was looking at the meeting minutes. There's quite a few to approve,
There are.
to get behind.
So there was one that we tabled that I had forgotten about, and then we have the site walk minutes, which are very simple.
I don't know if that's in it.
The September minutes
Yes.
have a typo with, well, it's not a typo, it's confusion of Connor and myself.
I saw that.
Specifically like line 18, Vice Chair Campion called the meeting to order at 7:01. And then it kind of throughout the rest of the minutes just goes back and forth between the two of us, but it should be Connor the whole time.
That's right. That's why we tabled them. Is it clear who was?
Nick didn't say anything.
Yeah, I
No,
think
I'm
I
just kidding. You might have.
zipped it up that meeting.
There was a lot, but I think.
Okay, so we'll just have him change
Yeah.
Campion to Madison.
Leave Campion in attendance, but take him out everywhere else.
Okay.
That's not the other one. So we want to go through this one by one. Is that the best? Okay. So for the September meeting minutes, so it's just the Nick Campion, Connor Madison. Anything else anybody saw? If not, do we need a motion for this one? I forget. So I motion to approve the September minutes as drafted.
As amended.
as amended.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So move, then we'll go on to, we'll do it in date order. And we'll go on to the October 8th, the site walk. I was not on it, but I'm hoping somebody that was in attendance. Looks like only Keith.
I make a motion to accept minutes of the site walk on October 8th.
I will second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The November 12th site walk, that one Dave, Keith, Connor, Drew, Shell. I'm trying to think. Is there anyone else on that one? I don't think so. So I will motion to approve the November 12th site walk at the Riverwoods project.
I'll second that.
And then all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then last but not least, November 12th, Conservation Commission meeting minutes. That was just last month.
We met over across the way, Town Hall.
That's what it was, thank you. I was trying to, okay. And that was the Riverwoods.
Yep.
So I was there. So I will motion to accept the meeting minutes as drafted.
Second.
And then all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. On to correspondence.
So there's one item for correspondence in your packet. Drew and I received an email from Brian Grissett on November 27th. I'm not going to read it into the record, but there were 5 items there. One relative, just kind of a report about beaver dam conditions along the Little River. He does mention that some of the beaver dams have been raised. I'm not aware of, that's certainly not a town-related activity. I have no idea who is doing that. The other note that was mentioned was there are no hunting signs are missing. That's under number 3. I will go out, I can try to get out there next week, hopefully, and replace any that might be missing. If anyone else wants to do it, you're welcome to. It's just a matter of walking the property boundary, so it's not quite trails, and ensuring the signs are up. But it's a pretty clear boundary. Drew and I walked it. It was pretty easy to find, I think, when we did it. But there was, he does also talk about the railroad, and so I wanted to bring this to your attention. He talks about railroad ties that have been dumped within the railroad right-of-way, trees that have been cut, some of which in both cases are either adjacent to or in wetlands. And so I just want to know how the commission feels, if that's something, obviously wetlands are within your purview. Is that something that, obviously we should go out, have somebody go out and document with photos and map locations where this is. But should it be determined that his observations are correct, and I suspect they are because he knows that property pretty well, would you want to send a letter to the railroad and the state? DES, Wetlands Bureau.
If I may, I've also noticed that over by Rains, like they did significant tree, it's not even pruning, like they took out like 100-foot pines and dropped them on the other side of the tracks, so.
In wetlands or?
Yeah. Yeah.
So in particular, they put some on the other side of the cattle crossing. So now it's blocked at the other end.
Oh.
It seemed lazy to me, like.
Well, I think the idea was that anything that looked like sort of a trail, they were putting the trees they had cut in that spot to discourage people from crossing the tracks, and I certainly understand that. But the problem was, I think they laid the trees long ways. So now they extend into the conservation land in different spots. And that's also true with Brian's letter. And so the idea, I think, was, again, to prevent people from crossing and sort of block these trails off. But in some cases, like at the underpass for the cattle at Rains Barn, they wound up putting them long ways instead of running along the tracks. And that extends into the conservation land and blocks the other end of that, which is a right-of-way of ours. So, whether we write them a letter or go out and cut the tips off of those trees so that you can go through there, or it's kind of up to what people want to do. But I sort of understand a little bit what they were doing, especially in light of recent events. But it is a mess. In a lot of places, it could have been done in a more, in a neater fashion, sure. So Brian has a good point. In a lot of spaces along that property.
Should we feel that this would warrant writing a letter to, did you say both the railroad and DES, or?
If there's a wetland violation, I would include the state.
Yeah, I agree, and include the railroad then.
Yeah.
Well, was there any obligation for anybody to remove the ties that he refers to?
I mean, it's kind of I don't know the rules and rights of the railroad within the right-of-way, but it is standard practice to sort of stockpile railroad ties along their corridor. I see it everywhere. The encroachment into wetlands, to me, is a different threshold.
Yeah, especially since they're creosote. If this, sitting in water or some such thing, that's not good.
But he's talking about ones that were dumped into the little river in the wetlands. It's item 2.
Yeah, so item 2 talks about railroad ties dumped into the Little River, and then item 4 talks about trees. It says full trees and slash were placed extending over, a good number are directly adjacent to wetlands, prime wetlands, and extending into these wetland areas. In other cases, blah, 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 adjacent to and into wetlands. So my thought was someone, and I can do it, but anyone else is welcome to as well. Someone should document these, get the location, confirm that, we do have a concern. But because we only meet monthly, it probably makes sense to authorize some sort of letter tonight if you're supportive of that.
Yeah, I'm supportive of it. The only reason I was just deep in thought there is sometimes forestry rules and hazard trees are just a whole mess. But if they're extending into a property boundary, as said, then that's a deemable offense. So.
A whatable?
Deemable is the word I just chose. That's
Deemable?
deemable. That's
Deemable. Oh, gotcha.
That's a word I just made up.
Yeah. I was like, that's a good one.
It's an offense that, But there are, just as an FYI, there are forestry rules that you can do, like a pull forward and with timber, or you can do drop and lop. But that doesn't seem to be what's happening.
Right.
What seemed to be happening was the trees were cut
And then
in a clump and then grabbed by something, so 4, 5, 6, 7 trees at a time.
yeah.
Placed in a spot that was potentially a crossing of a trail, of the track, excuse me, and laid long ways instead of sideways in some cases. So the whole crown of the tree is back into some of the conservation land in some cases. And that seems like, that was almost like it was either, that was the easiest place to put it for the operator, or maybe that person was instructed to do it that way. That's what my concern would be, the methodology.
Would it be worth just before reporting it to DES, just following up with them, since seems like a practice that's happening in multiple areas, just like we've
Following up with
observed.
the railroad?
Yeah, directly with CSX and being like, hey, what's going on with this? We've observed this and people have reported it in several areas and we're concerned about practice X, Y, and Z, which would be railroad ties in wetlands, cutting of trees into wetlands or property boundaries.
They're out of there right away, yeah.
Are you planning on coming back to the site to remedy some of these things?
Yeah.
I don't know, ask them something like, and they might say no.
To being honest.
Yeah. I know Brian did bring up, I think he came to a meeting, if I'm correct,
Yeah.
a few years ago. And one of his concerns at that time was railroad ties in the Little River, or in this general area by his property. So I think this has been discussed before the commission. And I think there were some photos he may have sent us at that time.
And I believe at the time I shared that with the state, but
And
did
yeah.
not contact the railroad.
Yeah, we did. We followed up. I remember we did follow up. It's a tough nut.
Would you need approval to reach out to the railroad, to CSX
Yep.
from us?
Yeah, so I'll motion that we approve communication with CSX and/or DES regarding this matter related to trees and railroad ties adjacent to the railroad corridor and our conservation areas.
Yeah, I think the larger concern, in some of these cases is you can go out there with a chainsaw and fix some of these things in 10 minutes. But the larger concern is that the methodology continues in the future would just be, eventually overwhelming. You know what I mean? To the particular spots, like the crown of the tree, okay, 12 feet of it's hanging over over a right-of-way that's on the, for the underpass, for example. Those can be cut back. It's not a problem, but the way they're doing it going forward they need to be aware of these things. So rather than say, hey, go out there and fix it all, I guess what we got to decide is, do we send a letter saying go out there and fix it all, or be cognizant of this in the future and we'll take care of these couple of things now? I don't know.
Yeah, both. I mean,
Okay.
no, I think you're absolutely on the money that we want to address it moving forward. Or just understand what their SOP is, how they do this stuff.
Exactly.
Well, I'll second your motion.
Then all those in favor? Say
Aye.
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 Motion passed.
Did you vote?
I did, yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry. So it's unanimous?
Unanimous.
Unanimous.
Sorry.
Uh-oh, is that the end?
I have one item that's not on the agenda, and that's the annual report. It's due like
Oh,
next week or something.
did I? Oh, Dave may have gotten it.
I don't know.
I usually would get an email from someone.
Okay, probably Pam.
Probably Dave. Pam sent it to Dave and he
Yeah,
didn't notice.
so, I would love items for the annual report. And if you want, I could prepare it for the commission.
I think some of the barn photos, I mean, that's been a big deal this year. The new siding looks so good. I think we've got some good photos. There was that like Aurora Borealis photo, just put that up and then we're done.
It's gorgeous.
Although I don't know if it's, are they color? I guess they're
Yeah.
color.
Okay.
Um,
If you think of anything else, let me know. Send it to me hopefully soon.
Via email or text?
You could send it either way, because I love to diligently check my town-issued cell phone on a regular basis.
I'll be glad to help you with that.
I think you also sent an email about trainings and webinars.
Oh, yes, I did. I sent a list of potential trainings. Trevor, I know you replied, and Michelle and Valerie, I included their trainings, so that the town is applying for a housing champion designation or something like that. And we need to apply for this in order to get a substantial amount of money. And so part of that requires documentation of training from Conservation Commission members. So I sent kind of like a list of at least trainings I was aware of. If you've attended any of those or others related to your position here, if you could send me what they are, who put it on, and when you took it, I would appreciate that.
Well,
But I'll assume that I have everything by close of business on Friday.
okay. Is that like a New Hampshire focused? I assume like a Vermont random training is not going to help.
I don't know that it matters. I think as long as it's something that somehow improves your role on the commission, I don't think it matters.
Okay. I will look into it. Anything else?
There is an upcoming Taking Action for Wildlife series. It sounds awesome. There's wildlife and trail, did write the dates down. February 5th, protecting and improving wildlife habitat. February 19th, corridors and road crossings in wildlife. March 5th, wildlife habitat and trails, that might be of interest to this group. And March 19th, community engagement for wildlife. I don't know if you received those, but if you don't, it's a great, you don't, I'll
I
send
do
that
not,
around.
no, yeah.
Yeah. Where's that held?
Virtual.
Virtual?
Yep.
On a computer.
You could always come to the office and we could set you up.
Thank you. You're too kind to me.
That sounds good. So then, a motion to adjourn this meeting at 8:36.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next town meeting, or next meeting is January 14th, submission date January 3rd.
Great.
You gotta whack it.
Drew
Nice.
can run out.
I gotta run.
Thank you
Sorry,
for
my
tuning
kids
in
are
to
home
Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.